All right, I think we have a couple of topics. He's you're on the first topic for the approval for multi-network ambient. Please, are you speaking or was it my device? I couldn't hear you.
Let's try that again. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
There's a race condition with AirPods. If you put them in to Google while you're in a Google Meet meeting, you're actually hear things, but the mic doesn't work. So, fun little thing. Okay, so as far as updates, I can actually, I've been struggling to share my screen on this. So if somebody wants to share, that'll be great. Thanks, Mitch. Over the last couple of weeks, I've gone through and made a couple of edits to the design doc for control plane and service discovery multi-network. Since the holidays last year, gone through and integrated a good bit of the feedback. The last time we discussed this in mid-January, I think we came to in the ambient meeting. I think there was a we got to a pretty good place as far as what the control plane API server readings would look like, and we were able to speak to Mike and Austin's concerns. One of the things that I have done recently to help make this a little bit easier to review, I've done a couple things. One is I've gone through and cleaned up a good bit of the comments, and then I've also bolded all the parts of the doc that propose changes to the API or like key points. Yeah, all the new stuff, all the new proposed things are in bold, which should ideally make this a little bit easier to go through and review. Just as a quick sort of setting the stage about where we're at when it comes to multi-cluster, we have an approved design doc for the data plane stuff that was approved last year, and there are several PRs out there implementing that. So I encourage folks to take a look at those PRs. For the control plane stuff, there is I put up a draft PR last week around the East-West gateway, and specifically just to sort of test things out and to see what a good API would look like for exporting services. So here in East-West Gateway implementation section, the PR that I put up implements everything that is discussed here for gateways, the export through label, all of those sort of things. I think that's most of it at a high level. I've also gone through and corrected some things around the WDS contracts and some open questions around specific fields in the WDS. So happy to discuss specific details of the doc if folks have any questions or blocking things. But if not, I'd really appreciate reviews pretty soon so that we can start to implement this for 126. Any questions for me now or concerns that people have that we can discuss now? If not, we can chat offline and can bring this back up during the ambient meeting this week to ask for more questions or comments. Okay. If not, then I guess I'll turn the floor over to the next topic.
Mike, real quickly, just I wanted to ask other TOC members, would it be reasonable for us to kind of set an internal deadline for final review on this?
I'd be good with that. Do you want to do, let's say, 2 weeks from now? Do you feel like that's enough time?
That's good for me, but I want to check with the others.
Sorry, I was out all last week, so I haven't really had a chance to spend a ton of time with the updates. Can we decide that on Wednesday?
The Wednesday we will review it again. I think the 2 weeks is the 2 weeks to kind of make sure everybody review and raise any concerns.
Yeah, sort of the review slash approve internal deadline.
Sure. I'm okay with it. I mean, you can put the next to my name. I mean, I think when we review the code, we may adjust a few things, but it's as good as we discussed it enough. I think we are on the same page.
Okay, so we've got Mitch approving and Costin approving, I think I'm hearing you say. So that's great.
Keith, you haven't approved it yet.
I didn't even put my name on there because it feels sort of redundant.
But I'm sure we'll, make adjustments as necessary. I mean, it's not
absolutely.
cast in stone or kind of.
100%. And just as a concrete example of that, when I went and wrote the implementation for the East-West Gateway, there are a couple of things that I added to the design that the code helped to bear out. So I always like to say code speaks louder than words. So I'm sure we'll find some things that need tweaking, but the approval is for the general direction and design of the implementation here. All right, we'll discuss more on Wednesday then. I hope you folks have more time to review before then. Thanks all. Thanks,
Keith. Mike, looks like you're up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to give folks an update on the 1.25 release process. I've been trying to, as diligently as I can, go through the documented instructions and find any gaps that are undocumented or automation that is not working, or as I didn't really expect to see, actually substantially incomplete. We've landed between Facila and I, who's been great working with me closely on this. We've landed at least like a half dozen PRs fixing up some of the automation, and particularly around step 3 had a whole bunch that was incomplete. And yeah, I just wanted to update folks of I think hopefully wrapping up step 4 of the branch cut today, and probably trying to get through the rest of the branch cut today. Fingers crossed, it looks like we're pretty clear on the rest of the steps, and proposing new tentative release dates for the code freeze and expected release, which is clearly not going to happen tomorrow. So it's just bumping those dates out 2 weeks to reflect the challenges that we've had during the branch cut process.
Thanks for the update, Mike. Is this something we need to be worried about in terms of making sure our releases, not for this release, but like long term, do we need to have some more investment in this space, it sounds like?
So that was basically the approach that I went into this release process with, is identify what is broken, what has been broken for 2 years, and try to take the necessary time to improve it. There's probably a little bit more to do. I left a handful of to-dos in the issue as I'm going through and as I'm getting past stuff. But it would probably benefit from a little bit more attention. But I would say that at least for the immediate time, Facila's been great to work really closely with on this, and she's going to be the primary for the next release. And I'll make sure to keep myself available. I think two of my takeaways from this is that, one, it was difficult for me to be primary, having somebody on the opposite side of the world, with Zhang as the primary for the last one. I didn't really get a whole lot of direct exposure as the secondary, the way that I think would be preferable. And sort of leading out from that, I think that what might be nice is instead of having like shadow secondary primary with the primary driving it, I would actually consider proposing a shift to like shadow slash secondary. It is like one role, primary release driver, and then the third person who, as the release manager, is the person who was the primary from the last release. So basically, the person who drove the last time and is familiar with all the things that may have been changed or not working is able there to support the next release rather than having it escalate up to just one person as the lead with trainees behind them.
That's some valuable feedback. Thanks, Mike.
Sure.
Any other way you need support from us kind of more immediately?
I don't think I'm blocked on anything immediately. For 126, we really should figure out who other than John is able to retag images in Google Artifact Registry for step 3.
Can you link
Because
us
he will be out on leave, I
for,
believe.
for context?
Yes.
We're all...
Yes.
Thank you. I'll put on my like historian hat and say that 6 or 7 years ago, when I was pretty new to the project, we had some really horrible releases that lasted. Louis, you'd know for sure. It feels like maybe 8 months for 1.1. It was a long time. It was a really long time, and it was a really painful process. And we as a project doubled down and invested a ton in improving that process. And within a year, they were really moving like clockwork. It sounds like we just need to make sure that we're sustaining that investment and not allowing that to decay over time. It's still there. It's still like way better than it was in the 1.1 time. But we want to make sure it stays that way.
Yeah, I think it's very complex and spans several different repos, particularly coordinating changes between test infra and release builder makes it kind of difficult to debug things when you do run into issues. I'm less familiar with Go than I am with like Node of like npm link type things of like, because it's all built containerized and pulling directly from master, like I can't just like link and use the local copy of the test info repo to stage changes into at the same time. And if there's a simple way to do that, it would be really good to document. And then yeah, it's just I saw notes in this release issue of like things that have been broken for 2 years. It would be good to not let things get ignored that long.
Absolutely. All right, I've dominated this conversation. Anyone else have questions, comments, concerns? All right. In that case, then let's hear about your progress on the ambient wrapper chart.
Okie doke. Yeah, so let me make sure I got this up. Yep, so again, this is the same thing. What has been done in the interim is basically changing this a little bit so that you install 2 charts. You install the current Istio control plane chart, and then you install a data plane chart, which has everything else you would need for ambient. This supports revisions. This is decomposable so that if you don't want to use the wrapper charts, which are each wrapper chart adds basically 5 lines of YAML to the repo. So if you don't want to use them, you can always still use the constituent charts they compose, which makes it pretty straightforward to support. It gives you 2 simple charts you can install, and if you don't want those, you can still always use the underlying charts as you do today. So the question I have is, do we want to do this? Because it will do what we want, presumably, which is simplify the number of charts that a new user installing ambient, for instance, has to install. Or do we not want to do this? And if we don't want to do it, what are the reasons? I know Costin has said that he would prefer, rather than composing 2 Helm charts, using Helm composition, we actually physically mash together Z-tunnel and Istio CNI and create a third chart effectively. The downside of that is that's a whole new chart and you can't decompose it easily. So it actually requires net more YAML to maintain effectively. That's the one reason I don't like that. But that would also achieve a similar effect. Just it doesn't let you like seamlessly just not compose and use the constituent charts. We would either have to introduce a whole new third chart that is the combined chart where we actually physically munge together Z-tunnel and Istio CNI as like a third thing, and then also maintain the individual charts so on top of that. So that really creates 3 charts, sort of, is my main concern with that. This doesn't require us to do that or deprecate anything, which is the only benefit.
To clarify, since you are describing
Sorry.
what I'm,
Please go. Yes.
So what I meant is not to create a third chart for sure. I meant to merge in Istio CNI to add the Z-tunnel, as an option, add Z-tunnel as an extra daemon set and what is necessary. So someone who has Istio CNI installed, when they upgrade, they just happen to get Z-tunnel as well, if they choose to get the combined result with an option like whatever profile you want or however you want to call it, but not a new chart for sure. So existing Istio CNI, and which is also very good for upgrades, because when you migrate from regular Istio to ambient, it will be very convenient to just upgrade Istio CNI and just get not have to do anything else than upgrading. And Istio D is clear. I mean, Istio D is already standalone. I don't think it needs any wrapper because it's already kind of has everything.
Correct. Yes, and that was good feedback, and I changed that because that sort of shifted over the time. Yeah. Okay. All right. Does that accurately represent what your preference is? I wrote it down in the notes. I think that's correct. So basically, add the Z-tunnel container as a feature flag into Istio CNI rather than composing the charts we have. All right.
So it's still the same logical separation, right? Data plane and control plane.
There's still the question that still creates the problem of what we do with base. So what I have done is the base is the chart right now that has CRDs and such. I've wrapped base, CNI, Z-tunnel into one and calling it data plane. That gives us 2. If we throw the Z-tunnel container into Istio CNI, it still doesn't really solve what to do with base. That either has to be out of band or basically that requires us to install 3. Base is unrevisioned like CNI and Z-tunnel. It's a singleton. So basically right now in the PR we have Istio D, which is its own chart, and then the everything else chart, which is all singletons: base, Z-tunnel, CNI. If we merged Z-tunnel and CNI, we would still have base as a singleton to contend with. So that is another thing that I'm not sure we could solve if we did it that way. But either way, And sorry, John, we've been ignoring you. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, my concerns on the last one and that remain is that regardless, like there's all these details we need to work through, like does it support XYZ? But the main thing is that the end state, we don't want to give users too many options, right? And so I think like if we can get to an end state where this chart supports all users, like this is like we don't want a new option. We want the option, right? So if this is a replacement for the existing chart setup, which means that it supports all the use cases we care to support, we can migrate from point A to point B, all these different things, then I think this is viable. But if it's just another option, then I'd be worried about supporting that.
So when you say
now, of course, like,
are you talking about sidecar as well, or just ambient?
I think it's fine if it's just ambient, as long as it's like if I'm installing ambient, this is the way I do it, right? And I need to be able to migrate from sidecars to ambient like you could today. I mean, I know that's not fully fleshed out, but like we shouldn't make that worse.
Well, you don't install ambient, you install Istio data plane, install Istio control plane. There is no.
Yeah, I mean, if we get to that state as well, like I'm fine with that. But I just mean it's like in the past when we had talked about this was like, oh, we're just adding a new option, and so like sure, it like if you want XYZ, then use the old way, and if you want these other properties, use a new way.
So this PR does support sidecar the same way. It's 2 chart for sidecars as well, but there is no upgrade path, to your point, from the old install in charts to move your install to this wrapper chart. You have to start with wrapper chart. You can start with wrapper chart for Sidecar or ambient, but there's no easy, you can't upgrade from non-composed charts to composed charts. There's no functionality to do that in Helm. So this would be more of a going forward, we recommend you do it this way. You can install revisions this way. So if you wanted to, create a new revision, you could do that, but it gets a little tricky if you want to do an upgrade in that way. This would be more like if you're already using separate charts, keep using them. If you are a new user and you just don't want to do that, here's the wrapper charts that we can recommend. But again, like the nice thing is this always decomposes, so this doesn't prevent anyone from continuing to use the discrete charts all day long. And
and that's exactly my concern. It's like we have two options today, which is too many options already. So I'm worried about getting 3 options.
That's fair.
In core, like to be fair, it's like there's actually really an infinite number of options, right? Because users can do anything, and like there's 5 operators. There's a bunch of samples of how to use with Argo. Like as a sample and stuff, like I think it's useful, and I think people may choose it. I'm just worried, like when you go to the documentation, we need like a well-lit prescribed path, not options.
Right. What I am proposing as part of this is that I would change the documentation to prefer this way. And then basically update. We have like a more advanced like Helm install thing where we talk about advanced chart manipulations, right? So basically I would change all the lit paths to be this 2-chart model for Sidecar and ambient, which is a pretty big change. If we don't want to do that, I agree. Just having a whole other, I don't want to add another page to the stupid docs that's like, here's the simple way to install with Helm. And then the complex way is still the default. I'm saying the reason to do this is to make it the lit path. And then we have a separate page. Is like, okay, so you're an Argo, you want to do the old, whatever. Like we'd have to message that. I'm okay signing up to do that, but like, yeah, I agree. I don't want to do this if this is going to be another option rather than the preferred. You walk up to Istio.io. Here's what we suggest you do option. Sorry, I'll stop talking. Whoever has hands, I think.
I'm pretty strongly against anything that is, we have plenty of users already. We cannot tell them, hey, this is a new way that is not compatible with the old one. With Istio, at least there should be no problem. And you install control plane just like before. There is no change whatsoever in what's installed. And that's clear. And for the old one, my understanding was that, you have Istio CNI installed. You upgrade, even if you install the composed chart, it will still install Istio CNI as a separate chart. If not, it will be very, very bad for people because they'll need to have downtime or all the existing users will have to be stuck with the existing one. It's a different story if it's not compatible.
It's compatible, but you can't migrate, right? Like that's
not compatible. So basically, all the existing, you create another separation between, hey, you are using operator in the past, you are screwed because. And all the existing users basically will be screwed, and new users maybe will also because they will read documentation that still use the older one.
If you want to upgrade, you have to upgrade using the mechanism you originally installed with. Is basically the constraint here. If you install discrete charts, you have to upgrade discrete charts. If you are doing a new install, you are welcome to do a combined, and that should work just fine. But like you can't upgrade from discrete to combined. That doesn't work.
But with my proposal, it works because if you are an existing Istio CNI user, you just upgrade and you just get ambient also enabled. There is a very simple migration. Basically, it's simply you just upgrade Istio CNI and you got ambient as well.
Yeah, it's a little trickier if you're already an ambient user and you already use the discrete chart still though. Like that's still
no. I'm talking upgrade for Istio Sidecar users. When they upgrade Istio, they also get ambient for free. Now, no change, just normal upgrade, and ambient is there. That's
well,
easy.
If they're already using the CNI chart, right? Which again is an option that Sidecar users are not required to use at this point. I'd like to your point, to make that upgrade easier, I would like to start telling Sidecar people they should default to Istio CNI based Sidecar stuff, because then it's much easier to move over to ambient. But
and if they don't, they just install it. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you're a Sidecar user that is not using CNI, all you need to do is to install CNI, and you get improvements in both Sidecar and get Zito for free. So it's easy migration as well. It's
yeah, I still think that's a little more difficult for people who already have ambient. That creates documenting how to do that for existing ambient users and Sidecar users adds some amount of complexity, and I don't think it would actually be a seamless upgrade in all cases. But anyway, so
well, at least the people who don't use ambient will have an easy life. And I think they are more numerous at this point. So yeah, nothing is perfect, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, but you know, I mean, yeah, that's true. But that should still be yeah, that should still be the case if they install the data plane chart. If you're a sidecar user, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. That has some. The only problem too with that is that again that creates the problem with base where we're basically at 3, and I don't want to do something that relieves us with 3 charts. Okay, so the wrappers would work, but there's no upgrade if you're on discrete, right? So we would have to say, like, you know, if you use the advanced Helm install method to install your stuff before, you'd have to upgrade using that. If you're a new user, use the combined charts. Putting Istio CNI and Z-Tunnel together, I don't think actually solves all paths. It does make sidecar migration a little easier, since assuming that you weren't already using Z-Tunnel, you weren't already using Istio CNI. But it complicates ambient upgrades as well, and a few other bits. And we also don't tell people to use CNI right now, so that's a little tricky. So do we want to do this at all, or do we want to? Do you want me to go and try to do the combined thing? I have a feeling the combined thing is not going to be quite as easy to use. The nice thing about this is it's the same UX, whether you're doing sidecar or ambient, and moving between sidecar and ambient. Once you switched over to the combined chart, is quite simple. Do we want to do this? Do we not want to have this? Okay, so I guess the question is this: do we want to document a new way to install Istio at all, whether it's the combined or the wrapped charts or the composed charts? Do we just want to not do that? Is it too late to change? We just say, look, it's going to be the discrete charts from now until the end of time. Forget about it. Is that what we were saying? If we can't provide good upgrades between discrete, combined, is that?
I'll just jump in for my part. I know we've got a lot of hands up, and I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to talk. I think it's taken a while for me to understand the nature of this conversation, as we've talked about it over the last 6 months, but it's clear to me now that this is the same problem we're always bumping up against. It doesn't look like an API problem, but it actually is. We have an existing API with an existing user base on it. We've come to understand that the ergonomics of that API are not ideal. And for new users, it's a little bit embarrassing to say you've got to install 5 charts during your KubeCon demo. It's 5 different steps to demonstrate onboarding. And so we could improve that. That being said, I don't see any path for telling other users they have to migrate. Even if it was possible to migrate between these two, you could go from 5 to 2 and Helm didn't freak out about changing chart ownership, etc. I don't see a path for telling our users we're going to shut down this option of 5 charts that you've been using for so long, and now you figure out how to use these 2 charts.
Right.
Which means they have, if they're ever going to live, they have to live side by side. They have to be 2 options for users.
Simple and complex Helm chart, yeah.
Yeah, I would be in favor, for my part, of putting this out as an option that we don't provide a ton of documentation for. Maybe our getting started guide mentions it or something along those lines, but we use it for KubeCon demos. We use it where we want to, and our users can discover the charts that they want. But I don't think there's any path for putting this out and then calling it the only way to do Istio and the only way to do docs or anything like that. Even if we kept the 5 charts around in existence, but moved all of our docs to the 2 chart model, what does that signal to our existing users? In my mind, that signals deprecation, and that they no longer have a guide on how to do their upgrades, etc. Anyways, that was my soapbox on that.
So just to comment on what Mitch said, that sounds like that's the N+1 model, Mitch, right? Like that's adding another way. Like, let's be real clear about what that meant. I would largely agree with what Mitch said. I would add the other thing of we have not done sufficient UX lift to justify the cost of additional support. If there was a way to go to a user who had done the 5 chart model or the 17 chart model and said, here's how you get to the 2 chart model. Click this easy button. Then, right, we may have met the UX requirement to get to the point where the sufficient center of mass around the new model right? And we can eventually deprecate the old model or decide, at least have flexibility deciding what to do with it. So Ben, just coming back, I heard the word Helm won't and Helm will freak out and ...
That's not possible. Yeah, like unless we write our own deployment mechanism, but which we have done.
A tool,
yeah,
right? To convert whatever it means to convert from the N chart model to the 2 chart model, right? I don't know.
Such a tool would be difficult and infeasible to the point where if that is a requirement, then we should drop this. Is I guess where I come down on that.
So, not being a Helm expert, I'm going to probe a little bit. Helm obviously maintains manifests of the things that it already did to make assumptions about how it should maintain them in a kind of isomorphic way with updates to the existing charts, right?
Right.
And it maintains that state in the cluster.
Yes. And yeah, we would effectively be munging Helm's lifecycle management out of band, which I mean, is technically possible, but I don't like to be in that space.
Yeah, no, it sucks. But I also don't see a way out of it if we were to write a tool. Or I guess the other potential way is to pretend like Helm never happened with the first round, and then infer what would have happened with the 2 chart model, right? So basically, you erase all of Helm's state, you derive what Helm's state was, you propagate it back into the 2 chart model, and you stuff it, right? Which is the same thing, just in reverse, right? But at least it's one way, not bidirectional.
Yeah.
Helm has no support for any of this, either in the community or in terms of tooling or guidance.
Not at this point, no. Like there's no way for moving from uncomposed to composed. Again, that's because nobody has this problem but us, right? For the most part, we have Istio has been around for quite a long time and has quite a lot of charts and has made quite a lot of missteps. So we are maybe the outlier in terms of needing to solve this in a very exacting way, which is probably why no one else has asked. But yeah, like there's no tool to do that.
So Mitch, you work at a company with a number of Helm employees. Last I checked, can you go ask them? Frankly, like the only way to dig yourselves out of this hole is to write a tool. Is there any prior art? Is there any way to do this? Because if there ain't, we're not digging ourselves out of this hole. Not really.
Absolutely make sure that this gets surfaced over to the Helm team and that we get some kind of official feedback. I do see a pull request in December that closed an issue that appears to be related to this. So I haven't deep dived on this, but I'll share it here. Helm Commandeer might be an emerging command that can help us out.
Right. Yeah. Take ownership is a little different, right? Take ownership is taking over an installation that you didn't manage, but that's a little different from moving from a composed or uncomposed to composed. There's different resources involved. It's a little trickier. It's not exactly the same, but if you can do one, like you can do the other, but they're not quite the same problem. I agree.
Yeah. And actually that link I just sent is the wrong link. Sorry.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, that's takeover is a viable model if we forget what Helm already did, right? So
now I've sent the wrong link twice.
Okay, but John, you had your hand up after me.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think I was just responding to the overall question of do we want to do this or not? Which my kind of view was, in abstract, I do want to do it, but in practice, like the things that we want as prerequisites, I don't see a path towards doing them. So it's kind of in theory, yes, but in practice, no. I mean, if we can close these, and maybe we can with some help from the Helm community and whatnot, maybe. But I'm skeptical, to say the least. Helm community is generally not a very dependable for making your life useful community. So, and even then, like say they merge something today, like it's still, I don't know what the release cycle is like, upgrade process, that sort of thing. So.
Okay, so maybe, but only. Do we all agree we don't want to go to N+1, right? We want to go to N-1 in terms of support installation mechanisms. And so unless we can meet a usability threshold to do that, we can't.
Can I say something quickly here? So I remember when we first started the Rapper chats, we got user asking, 5 chats too hard to install. And I think, Ben, you did the Rapper chats with everything wrapped together, which I thought was great as an option. When user ask, we have a page to send to them. I think there's maybe 5 user asked us in the past. And I mean, we had that done. Can we just keep that as like somewhere on the side in the docs? I think
So-
you also think out the automation for the doc.
We don't have docs for that wrapper chart, and that was the original thing, right? We don't want to document that publicly because that doesn't separate the
Well, I think-
singletons from the non-singletons. And
I
so
think
it
we-
basically exists, but it's not documented except in one release note for one release, which is not ideal.
Yeah, I think we agreed, if I remember correctly, we don't want to replace it as our official doc, but kind of as a way to show people this is possible. If you want to bundle some of our Helm chats together, look, we've provided an example for you if you want to bundle everything together. And we also, I think it was in one of the TOC call, you mentioned about we could potentially even have a doc testing associated with that on Istio.io. I thought then you did that. Maybe I'm mistaken. I'm actually happy with that stage because I think that's what user wants us to do is providing this is possible if they're not happy with
The
5
current
charts.
state is we are testing that all in one chart, but in a hidden docs test. So there is no public facing documentation that it exists or how to use it, but we are testing it internally so that we don't break it, basically. which
Okay,
is
so we are
an
testing
uneasy
it.
test.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
it's tested but completely hidden, basically.
Yeah, can we provide this as a sample install for people
Where
to
would we
show people
document
how they
that?
can compose?
Yeah, like my question there is where do we document that and how do we document it?
And Lynn, I think you're highlighting a problem that we've had throughout this process, which is that we continue to shift on almost the philosophical goal of this work. It's more than scope creep, it's goal creep. We started, I think, at least the first conversation I remember was about KubeCon demos and how it's a little bit awkward to do 5 charts in a live demo. Wouldn't it be better if it was 1? Well, 1 isn't production ready, so maybe it should be 2. And then if we've got 2, where do we test it? And then if we test it, where do we document it? We end up being a dog chasing our own tail between a demo chart that is for samples and conferences and a production ready chart that is an API change that everyone needs to migrate to and some hybrid between the two. I think what this work needs to move forward is some sort of written agreement on the goals of the work. And only once we really have consensus on the goals, and we're not going to change them again for at least maybe 3 months, can we talk about the design and implementation and execution.
The goal is that 2 charts is the minimum number that are safely recommendable in terms of an upgrade flow. Period. Like that's the smallest number we can get away with in migration or whatever. Like 2 is the minimum number. We can do 2 as the minimum number, but anything other than what we have would require some sort of migration pathway, which we don't have, as just discussed.
Keith, I think you were.
Is that the goal though? Is the goal to replace our existing charts there? Is that everybody's thought the goal is? Because I thought the goal was, people want convenience and they were asking for something to easy install Ambient when they try it on the Ambient channel.
Right, but it's like everybody wants convenience like that. Is that just the goal is then just have a better UX for install, right? Like holistically for the project.
That's what I want to sort of dig into a little bit. So just backing up slightly, I can say confidently that like Microsoft does not have a Helm team. We invested in it originally and have since sort of shifted investment. Otherwise, we do have some contacts that we can put people into contact with that we can reach out to maybe, but there's no active movement there from us. I do think to take ownership or stuff is interesting here, but I want to key in on the goal of the work. Like is the goal to make progress in our UI flow or UI in the UX of our installation flow, or is it to get to 2 charts? I know that's how that started, but like, for example, as a hypothetical contrived example, if we could effectively merge ztunnel and SGCNI into 1 chart for 0 cost, and then deprecate the existing flow, is that worthwhile? Because that would be an incremental improvement, but it would still be an improvement. I think that is more along the lines of the questions that the answers that I'm curious about, because ultimately I get having an ideal experience, but like 2 charts feels really ambitious, especially when you just talk about singletons and indices and things like that. So I'd like some clarity on if we're okay with incremental improvements, or do you think it's just not worth it, period, if we can't get to 2?
Yeah, my personal take is it's not worth it, period, if we can't get to 2, because even combining Istio CNI and ztunnel still leaves a migration problem and a docs problem of, so you install the ambient with them separate. What the frick do you do? Well, you don't upgrade. You have to just like do some manual work to fix that, just like you would with this.
If we don't implement it properly, because it's not, it's possible to do it. I'm pretty sure you can have a migration path if you name things properly and you have some handover between the ztunnels, which I think is possible.
It's not an Istio issue, though. I think that's the problem. It's not an Istio issue; it's a Helm issue. The annotations about what release things belong to. That's the manual work.
No. If you use different names, there is no issue. So you don't have to call it ztunnel. You can call it ztunnel-CNI, and then you need some code in the old ztunnel and the new ztunnel to know about each other. So basically, the next release would have in ztunnel some code to, basically hand over. But there is no. You will not have any shared object.
You'll have duplicates. So you'll have ztunnel running on the node, and then you'll have ztunnel v2 running on the node.
For a short period, you have 2 ztunnels. I think it is perfectly possible. I mean, John, can you confirm? I mean, it's not impossible to. I mean, it is to be able to handle that, because you may have ztunnels from different sources, no?
No, there's not 2 ztunnel support. I mean, there is, like, just for an upgrade, like one ztunnel comes up, the other goes down in response, but not 2 running side by side for.
We could make that work, but that would remove at most 1 chart and would still require basically us documenting an upgrade path in our public facing docs to remove 1 chart from the equation, which doesn't feel worth it to me. That's kind of why I'm on the, if we can't do 2, I don't feel like doing it at all, because I don't think it's as valuable. But anyway.
But wait a minute. I mean, this is not going away. I mean, you are saying that we create a new chart, so existing users are not helped in any way. So if you have ztunnel installed and you want to move to this brave new world of 2 charts, you still need to write a documentation of how to get rid of the old ones. So it's not. You're basically
but at least there we're getting down to nothing but 2 charts, right?
And that's the same thing with this one. I mean, new users will still get 2 charts, and existing users have an upgrade path that is, not very, very complicated. I mean, it's just you upgrade and then you remove a chart later whenever you want.
Right. You still basically have discrete parts, though. It's not data plane and control plane. It's control plane, base, maybe a gateway, and then.
No. Gateway is gone. I mean, I don't know how you guys can't say 5. I mean, we keep hearing 5 charts.
Worst case 5.
But I mean, I don't care about worst case. Normal user can get 2 charts. I mean, worst case, people are 5 charts, 10 charts.
You've got base, Istio, CNI, and
no. For a sidecar user, you need base and Istio. That's all you need. You can have a perfectly valid Istio installation with this. For ambient, you also need CNI and ztunnel, yes. So if we combine them, it's 2 and 3, not 5, not 7, not 9.
And for sidecar, ideally, you should also need CNI. Like, again, implicit.
Optional, if you choose. But that's an advanced user, and then you are exactly. So basically, 2 or 3. It's not 5, not 7. 2 or 3. And we want
is
to
that
bring
much better than 2 or 4? I think that's the fundamental question for me. Is 2 and 3 better than 2 and 4? In a way that's worth the cost.
I mean, 3 is better than 4 in all. I don't know how you count it, but.
All right, sorry. Yeah, we're over time on this, and I got other things to do. So I think my stance is, I wrote down the consensus here. Okay, we don't want to add another parallel docs path, not simple and advanced. Thus, unless we have a way to convert from in chart to 2 chart, then what the 2 chart PR I've got is not feasible. Is that a reasonable thing to say here to wrap this up? We can
I
talk
think-
about doing it another way, but like the PR as it sits out there where we have wrapper charts, not going to fly because of these two things. Is the consensus in the notes seem fair to people?
I think people are okay if we provide it as a sample. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you're saying, Ben. And something that I've thought we should do for a long time is that what we say on our docs and what happens when a user needs to go integrate with their infrastructure are kind of unrelated things. Like,
Yes.
so like what would be useful is to have a, maybe not official, but like, here's how you use Argo, here's how you use Flex, here's how you use helm file, here's how you could manually compose them in your own composite charts. Like there's all sorts of ways to consume our artifacts. Like Istio is always kind of the building blocks of your own platform. And so giving examples of how to do that is great. How is that different from having 10 options in the Istio docs? It's kind of subtle because it's very similar, obviously. But I feel like it's like we do already have some existing Argo stuff. It's outdated and kind of has some bugs, I think.
Yeah.
We don't have much, so that's always stuff that is useful. Just in the messaging that it's like, it's not that when you go to use Istio, you make these decisions. It's like if you have opinions and you've already made your decision on what you want to do, here's help to do it, kind of. Which that's a long-winded way to say as a sample. It's still something that's potentially useful.
As a sample that we document and publish, or as a sample that we simply show you how to write your own sample in the docs, like.
Like I think it would be nice to just be like, here's like the GitOps samples, and it's a collection of like all the ways that you can, control.
Yeah.
And GitOps doesn't need to be the segmentation.
Yeah.
You can have something else.
Ecosystem like operator, like the operator. In ecosystem, we can have one sample for the compose and chart, one for Argo, one for everything.
Yeah, it's like a lot of projects have like reference architectures, right? It's kind of like a similar concept. Here's the reference architecture for how to install with. Now this is a simple one, obviously, but there'll be more advanced ones.
So the compose chart is simpler, but wouldn't be the landing page. We would still basically land people on the complex charts, but we would have like sample integrations or whatever. That's like Argo combined, whatever else. Is that what you're talking about, basically? Is that a summary that makes sense?
Yep. Default install is 3 charts. If you want 2 charts, go to ecosystem. If you want 1 chart, go to operator. Easy.
Okay. I'll see if I can knock together some documentation changes that manifest that, and I'll surface those, and people can tell me how they feel about that. Does that seem reasonable? Now that would be using the combined 1 chart that is not recommended, but still fine to show people in a sample versus the 2. Is that correct? Okay. So it's just back to the 1 chart, but document it clearly.
Well, actually,
the way you can do this.
There, I would say, Ben, actually, I would prefer the 2 chart.
Yeah.
Rather than the 1, like, because it's at least it's a statement about what we would like to migrate to, and it's a good documentation of it. If we ever found a way to do the migration, that's actually what we would migrate to. So I'd rather do that.
Well,
So do you
samples...
have testing for both? Because I don't want to document something we don't have tested.
No. I would switch all testing to just do 2. Just basically only do the 2 as the sample.
Yeah.
Our samples often find their way into production as well. So having the sample be a 2 chart model so that if they do deploy it to production, even though we haven't really advised that, they haven't shot themselves in the foot. That'd be great.
Right.
All right. Sounds like we have consensus for this topic. Thanks.
Sorry, guys.
Should we move down to the next one, KubeCon project update? I believe we have a couple of opportunities. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So I think we have a 1-minute video recording on the keynote. It's either the keynote for London or for Atlanta, which we don't know which one we will get allocated. I believe I signed up for London. I think what they are changing is the keynote will be for showing project every day instead of just on Friday, but they only want to highlight 10 graduate projects for a particular KubeCon. I assume there's 20 graduate project at CNCF right now. So if we are selected for London, I think the video, if I remember correctly, is due very soon. I think in 12 days, if I remember correctly. If we need video editing help, which I'd rather get the help. So I don't know if there's anything new we want to highlight for the project. I was thinking maybe just highlight ambient again. They did offer us to either do a video or do a demo. So I thought maybe demo could be interesting because I think Keith, you did ambient related video last time at KubeCon. Okay, 30. Yeah, you're right. If you pick up for London, you can't do Atlanta. So we only got to do one. So Keith, is that what you want to discuss on the keynote or something else?
Yes, I was mainly wanting to make people aware of the change, specifically the exclusive nature. I didn't realize you submitted already, Lynn. Thank you for doing that.
It's first come, first serve. So Priscilla asked me. So
yeah, for sure. So I want to make sure folks know that this is changing, and so from a TOC perspective and a steering perspective, I think we will probably want to take this timing into account because we only get one update video per year now versus one for each conference. Honestly, I don't know. They extended the deadline a little bit for their projects, so I don't know if it's even possible for us to change a preference if we did want to. But I don't know. How many people do we have going to London? Do we want to try to be strategic about which conference we try to aim for, depending where we have most presence? Just throwing these things out there. We don't have enough time to come to a decision, and some of this is probably a meeting for the steering audience anyway. But this is just more of an FYI. If you've got things that you want to make sure are included in the project update, go ahead and please let us know in the TOC steering questions channel in Slack. We'll try to make sure those are there as we continue discussing how you want to handle this.
Yeah, so I would say I'll keep you all posted. I suspect we potentially will be selected for London, given I asked Priscilla which one. She said London is fine, and it's first come first serve because Mitch, you said 30, so it's possible we don't get selected for either of them because it's first come, first serve. So I do think we should take our chance if we're given a slot. Would you all agree, right? I'll share it as soon as we are confirmed for London and collect thoughts on what you all think is valuable for highlight. My initial thoughts is I think a lot of people are going to do talking. It might be more powerful just to capture a short demo, but we can certainly highlight things and put QR at the end for people to learn and also drive folks to the project pavilion at the end. All right, I guess that's it. We're right on time.
All right, thanks everyone. Just as a reminder, we're changing our calendar model this week. I need to get it updated today. Our Wednesday meeting, we will have one meeting at 10 a.m. and our TOC meetings are now twice monthly instead of once a month. So that'll be the second and fourth Mondays of the month at this time slot. So you'll see those invites change today.
Thanks, Mitch.
Okay, thank you so much. Have fun in play, Mitch.
Thanks.
Bye all.
Bye.